And we are back to conclude our UTMB coverage with the 2025 champion, Tom Evans. Thank you for doing this, buddy. And congratulations.
Bonjour, Dylan, and merci. Well, now that we're not in France anymore, I feel I don't need to learn. I can forget all the French that I've learned over the last 2 months until another time.
Yeah. And you are currently on daddy duty here with a sleeping child, back to real life after your amazing, incredible victory at UTMB.
Real life never changed. As a father as well, you will know. When the nappy gets full and sometimes things escape from the nappy, 10 minutes before leaving to the start line, I'm there in full race kit, dealing with the worst punami man has ever seen. That is nothing like getting rid of your pre-race nerves and not worrying about the race when you're dealing with a naked baby with poo all over her and you're cleaning her up. So daddy life has always been like this.
Yes. Puts things in perspective right before you do a 110-mile lap around.
It's exactly what you need.
And maybe this is the perfect place to start, Tom. Of course, in our pre-race interview, I made the statement, I look forward to continuing this conversation in our post-race interview. And sure enough, here we are. But sort of the biggest takeaway from the pre-race interview was you reconnecting with the love of the game again. So maybe the biggest, most profound question to start here. Do you love the game again, Tom? And maybe meditate just on the performance enhancing qualities of loving the game itself.
100%. I think for me, this felt very similar to, I guess, a combination of my UTMB in 2022 and then my Western States in 2023, and definitely whenever they were, I can't remember. You'll know better than me.
That is correct. Yes, 22 and 23. Yeah.
And post then I definitely lost my way and started worrying too much about winning and not doing it for the love of the sport. And I guess as you become professional in anything, you are maybe not defined by your results, but you need to have the results in order to be able to be defined. And I guess I was just chasing wins, chasing victories, and forgetting the really important things about the sport that I love. And I think 2 failures or learning opportunities plus having Phoebe has, I guess, put everything into perspective. And I'm now doing it. I want to win more than ever, and I want to win more than ever in my way. And that's not everyone's way. It might not look particularly sexy in the first half of a race, but I know I can close strong, and my strengths are closing quickly and doing a shoey on the finish line. It's not everyone's flavor, but
iconic.
You've got to do what you've got to do. And I think, what this loop has taught me more than anything is, if you have fun in training and then have fun during the race and find ways in the race to smile and for them to be real smiles, it goes more than you can possibly imagine. Like, I think I take on the women's side, for example, like you take Courtney, she is one of the smiliest competitors. That is a performance enhancer 100%. Same with Emily Hallgood.
And it's genuine.
It's genuine. Like, you can't fake it. But when you've got it, you've got it. And once you've got it, doesn't mean you can't lose it. And I definitely lost my way. And I'm happy to say that I'm back and loving this sport. The journey, the ups and the downs more than.
What a huge lesson for all of us. And I want to come back and talk about some of the ways in which you found an opportunity to smile on the course, because I noticed a few interesting details that I think the audience would love to hear you talk about. But coming back to this idea of needing to win, you said something that I felt was also really profound in your finish line interview, was that if you try too hard to win, it's really difficult, as was evidenced by the last 2 years at UTMB, where you didn't allow the race to come to you and maybe you forced your will too much. At least that was my interpretation. I'd love to have you just expand on that. Just the idea of trying too hard to win and the negative consequences inherent in it.
Yeah, I guess you can relate to it. Like in your lacrosse days, like if you try too hard to catch the ball, you're just going to drop it. You're just going to miss. You're going to fumble. And I think if you focus so much on such a small part of the sport, this sport isn't about winning at all. This is a participation, a community sport. And yes, there will be a winner in these races, or there'll be someone who finishes first. But that person isn't the winner. I see the winner is everyone who's on the start line. And I'm incredibly lucky that I have some talent to be able to do this, and I'm able to train hard, and I love training hard for these races. But I think for me, the winning side, when winning doesn't become the main effort, you're able to unlock that door. And for me, this race was about being successful, and I wanted to squeeze absolutely every ounce of performance out of my body over the 170 kilometers. And whether that was a first place or a 10th place, I'd have genuinely been happy. And yes, it makes it the fairy tale ending that I was able to win the race. And it felt very similar to Western States, where it wasn't that I couldn't do anything wrong. I definitely made mistakes during the race, but I dealt with them really well. And the hard times, I was incredibly proactive. I guess looking at like the details in it, we knew that it was going to be cold, and we knew that it was going to be wet. When it's cold and wet, it's really difficult to fuel on gels and bars and things, because I had 2 pairs of gloves on for most of the night. It's really difficult to undo gel wrappers. So when we were above 2,100 meters, I only fueled on liquid. And it was making a conscious decision that was going to be the plan, because that was what the weather conditions were. I don't think anyone else would have done that. And they wouldn't have looked at it and thought, oh, actually, the weather's going to be really bad. Like, what does that actually mean to my race plan? Okay, well, nutrition is going to be really important because it's colder. So actually, if I've got my jacket on and I've got 2 pairs of gloves on, I really need to be able to fuel. And if fueling is difficult, I'm not going to do it. So let's just make it all liquid. And I think, by doing that, then every time I fueled and I could see other people not fueling and struggling, I'm sort of giving myself a pat on the back and saying, like, well done. You're doing really well. You're looking after yourself and you're fueling. These are things that you've not done in previous editions. Yeah, well done. And that then sort of feeds into the brain that you're sort of giving yourself a pat on the back. That makes you happy. So you then do it again. That makes you happy, and so on and so forth. And I think it was a really, really cool way to do it.
Yeah. You're sort of playing the game on the field. And I think the perfect counterexample, and I don't think you would mind me saying this, or the perfect example of the opposite of somebody trying too hard to win, of forcing their will, was maybe Jim Walmsley in the 2017 Western States. That was a snow year, right? And he had famously missed that turn. He knew he was capable of a course record that year and really tried to force his will on it. Backfired. DNF took him one more chance before he unlocked the code. But there is, I think, just immense value and a key differentiating factor that could have been the thing that put you over the top is playing the game on the field, not only coming in with incredible fitness and this new renewed mind state, but also confronting the realities of the specific day that you guys were dealt. And I want to hear more about the weather, because I Run Far posted this video of you, John Albin, and Ben Demon going over the top of the Col de Bonhomme. And holy smokes, it looked miserable. And then in your post-race interview at the finish line, you said that you guys kind of buddied up at night, going over the high points. So I'd love to just hear what that looked like practically. I'm sure the audience would love to be a fly on the wall of that early lead group going through what was the worst recent weather conditions at UTMB.
Yeah, I think we all kind of knew that the weather was going to be bad, and it was wet, and then it wasn't that cold in the valley, but then as you got higher, it got cold and windy, and the snow then started. And you were already soaking wet by the time that you had got to the snow line. So yeah, top of Col de Bonhomme was pretty grim. See, I said to Ben and to John, it's like, look, guys, this is more than just racing. Like, we need to look after ourselves. I'm not saying this because I want you to say like, oh yeah, my legs feel bad and then I'll push. It was I just want to know that you guys are okay, because I guess you look at it a bit deeper. Like, if one of us isn't okay, it's the other two who are going to have to sort them out. Like, the sport is more, like I said, the sport is more than just winning, and having other competitors and friends' safety and well-being is more important than 5 minutes on the course. So it was just, it's as simple as, right, guys, every 5 minutes, let's just check in on each other. If we're not talking, which by that point we weren't because we had our hoods up and you could hardly hear a thing.
It was howling up there. It was crazy.
Yeah, so just to say, like, can we just, it's like, Ben, your hands all right? Like, are you okay? And you'd be like, yeah, I'm fine. Are you okay? Like, it was quite as simple as that. Like, it was really simple, but I think it goes a really long way, and nice to show sort of the inside of the elite group when it is, yes, you're competitive, but yeah, the health has got to go first.
Okay. So going one level deeper though, to me, looking at the result, it seems that both you and Ruth managed the conditions best during the race. So share a little bit about, just like how you were practically dealing with these really intense weather conditions, and maybe any insights into what you did that could have put you over the top. Like, do you think it was a race management issue at the end of the day rather than a fitness and talent game?
Yeah, I think so. I think you look at the location of the DNFs, and a lot of them weren't in Courmayeur. Like, a lot of them were later at sort of Champex-Lac or La Fouille and Champex-Lac. So I think like it was that degradation that just really got to people. People got cold. It wasn't, the first half of the race wasn't fast at all. Like, especially with Pyramid Calcaire taken out, like it really was not a fast first half of the race. That definitely took out some, I don't think anyone DNF'd. I don't think many people dropped out because of stomach issues. And a stomach issue is, I hate to say it to everyone who's blaming their stomach, I've done it before, on being your stomach, as you get stomach issues because you've gone too hard. 99% of the time, that is the case. You might not, I certainly didn't want to accept it, that it's easier to blame my stomach than actually I just went too hard. But I think it wasn't, at the front of the race, it wasn't crazy fast. I think from like, what did I do from in terms of race management? Different jackets. That was really important. Every aid station I changed my jacket. At every aid station I changed my gloves. And something that we introduced this year for, like, I find when I go through the really crowded, noisy areas, my heart rate just spikes massively. Even if I'm running really easy, like I'll be sat at 130, 140 beats and I'll spike to like 170, 175. It's the equivalent of, I'm going way too hard, my stomach's going to go, even if I'm not going quickly. So like I take like Saint-Gervais and Notre-Dame-de-la-Gorge, and then, they're probably the two main ones. So the strategy for this year was I used like earplugs to go in just to cut all of the noise out and to stay like, I guess, a bit more like tunnel visioned.
Wow.
It's what the Tour de France riders do on the big climbs, because you go from, if you're already on your limit or near your limit, then you're still working, like your legs are still going the same, your lungs are still going the same. But if your heart rate spikes, like you're going to start producing lactate, you're going to start going over the top without realizing it. And Notre Dame, you could do that in Saint-Gervais and you'll be like that for 5-10 minutes. And the same at Notre-Dame-de-la-Gorge. And exactly when you want to be relaxed and to chill out is when you get your most heightened and your heart rate spikes. So like we looked at the data from the previous years, and I've hit max heart rate in Saint-Gervais and at Notre-Dame-de-la-Gorge. And this year my heart rate stayed pretty much exactly the same. It went up by like 4 or 5 beats for 5-10 minutes. And that was it.
That is so fascinating, Tom. It reminds me. Yeah, I don't know if you read Rod Farvard's post after Western States, but he made the comment that coming into Forest Hill, really what he needed to do was spend the time to regroup and look after himself, but that it was so busy and so loud in Forest Hill this year that he had the instinct of, I just need to get out of here. He had this overwhelm that in all likelihood did manifest in an accelerated heartbeat that made him then make the wrong decision about what to do at the aid station transition that could have eventually cost him his race. That's just, I do think, a really amazing detail, and I think an example of what put you over the top and what makes you a special athlete. How did they practically communicate the removal of the pyramids? Was it just through Les Chapeaux, and then did that impact the way you approached the race?
We didn't get a notification of any sort until we got to the point of the course where you would normally turn left to go up pyramids. And the signage was just carried on going down the road. And I said to Ben at the time, because it was snow on the ground, we couldn't see the path.
Yeah.
And I said to Ben, we should have turned left by now. But the markers with the reflective things were still going down. And then 30 seconds later, we saw the group who were putting the markers down. And we're like, are we going the right way? Have pyramids been cancelled? And they said, yeah, change of course. And then, We had no idea, no mobile phone notification, no nothing. But yeah, thankfully on the ground, they were there to already mark the course. But yeah, no one said anything at any aid stations or anything. So I think it was probably a fairly last minute decision.
Okay. So back to the race report itself. At that point, I think Theo Detienne was still out front in the lead of the race. At what point did you and Ben catch up? I'd love to just hear at what point you sort of established yourself as a leader or co-leader in the race.
So yeah, Theo we were sort of kind of all together. Then Theo put a surge in after Lac Combal, or just before Lac Combal. And he went hard on the downhill into Lac Combal and then very hard on the climb. And sort of by the top of the climb, we couldn't see him at all. I reckon he put 2 minutes to us into the climb and couldn't see him for the descent into Courmayeur, and then got into Courmayeur and we were in it the same time as he was. He probably left 90 seconds before I did. Again, I wanted to take my time, change my jacket, change my gloves, reestablish what was going on in the race, have some soup, get a bit warm before then heading out and not rushing. So yeah, didn't see Theo. And then Ben and I were together and all the way up the road and then onto the trail climb going up to Baton. Didn't see him at all. And it was just as, maybe 10, 15 minutes into running on the balcon, we then saw a headlamp in front and I was like, oh, that must be him. And it was, and he was probably sort of a minute away at this point, and caught him just going into Banati. Because it wasn't hot, there was kind of no need I didn't fill up at Banati. And so caught him then, and I think he stayed for a little bit, but not for long. Ben and I had chatted sort of throughout the race, bits and pieces, some about the race, some about, I asked about the Pyrenees and how we got to the Pyrenees. And I know my sort of specialist subject, if I had a pub quiz now, would be Ben Demon, which is pretty cool because I didn't really know him much before the race, and super, super nice guy.
Stud, and a great performance from him too.
Maybe just starting the descent into Arnuva. I asked a question. I don't know what I asked, but didn't have an answer. And I was like, Ben's must be bored with me. There's sort of 5 seconds later, I turned around to just check he's all right. And he wasn't there. And I thought, this is interesting. I don't know whether he's stopped for a wee or he's doing his shoelaces, whatever. And so got into Arnuva, got out of Arnuva. And Arnuva's such an important aid station because you've not got a refill now until you hit La Foulée. And if you climb well and descend well, that's still the best part of 2 hours. But if you climb and descend not so well, it can be a really, really long time. So I sort of made sure to fill my bottles, had a bit of food. And as I was leaving, Ben was coming in. So maybe a minute ahead of him. So I thought okay, this is interesting. So I ran from the aid station to the bottom of Grand Corferet climb, poles out, and then just hiked hard, but nothing crazy, just making sure sort of basically not worrying about my legs, just really focusing on my arms and just really pulling with and extending with the poles. And sort of every 5-ish minutes, I would turn around and the gap was just getting bigger and bigger. And by the time we got to sort of like the halfway point in the climb where you go past the refuge, I'm not sure what it's called, like it was a pretty big gap. And I was like, okay, cool. I know the course so well. I know that when I go around this corner, he's going to lose sight of me. The weather was horrendous. So I'd sort of turned my lamp right down sort of on the lowest setting just to try and be a little bit more camo. And then as soon as I was around the corner, sort of again had another bit of a push, knowing that on the descent from Grand Col Ferret, if you're 90 seconds, 2 minutes ahead, no one's seeing you. Like it's too twisty and turny, especially in the conditions. So got to the top, turned around, couldn't see Ben. So I was like, okay, this is at least a 4-5 minute gap.
I think it was 7 from memory by the time
Turned out it was a 7-minute gap, which was great to have. The conditions, the descending conditions from the top of Grand Col Ferret were horrendous. Like it was the first time I've ever used like clear lens glasses descending because it was so bad. I've started using headlamps, like a headlamp on my head and then around my waist as well. And for these conditions, it's you have to do it.
Really? Wow.
It is. I've sort of always looked at it and thought, oh, it's a bit odd. I'm not sure. I'm pretty good with a headlamp. I don't need much light. But when the conditions are like that, having that dual aspect is just a complete game changer. Like you can actually see. It's like if you're driving your car in the fog and you put your full beam on, you can't see a thing. But it just changes the angle and just cuts through and is a 100% game changer.
Okay, so just for the audience here, reinforcing the Grand Col Ferret, it turned out was the critical moment in both the men's and women's races, and it has been now many times over the course of many years at UTMB. 7 minutes at the top of the Grand Col. Tom Evans finally alone in the lead at UTMB. Of course, he's still got a lot of ways to go at that point. I'm sure the audience would love to hear the internal dialogue of how you're absorbing the enormity of this moment and still keeping in mind the important new attitude you brought to UTMB.
I think at that point, like I definitely didn't let the gravity of the situation get to me. I was still at that point just really focused on, I would just set myself little tasks to do. So whether it was carrying on with my fueling, at that point, I took my mitts off for my poles so I could put them in my shorts to try and dry them out a little bit. It was just doing these little tasks just to try and stay focused. And every time I would do a task, it was sort of a couple of minutes would pass, then a couple more minutes would pass, and things were good. And it probably wasn't until I got onto the flat section, because you just never know how your legs are going to feel. And I feel if you can run from the Ferret town down, sort of through La Foulée, all the way through the Foulée, and keep going down to the bottom of the Champ-Lac small climb up. Like if you can run that well, by the time you get there, the sun's come up. And if you can run that moving nicely with a good heart rate, then things are looking good. So for me, that was just my focus. It was just like, let's just really segment the course down. Like, let's get this downhill done, and then small climb up to Champ-Lac. Saw my crew in Champ-Lac. And for me, like, I guess when I got to Champ-Lac, it was having run past the places that I've dropped out in the last few years. Like, it was actually quite fun running through La Foulée and looking at the car park in the exact space where Soph picked me up last year, and sort of looking at it and being like, I've beaten you.
Yes.
You're now gone. This is old news. I sort of could put it to bed, and I was like, oh, cool. I've not got this far for a while. And I really believe that I'm still feeling good. Yes, there's still a long way to go, but things are feeling good at the moment. So let's make the most of it. And I then saw Soph and Phoebe in Champ-Lac, and I guess it got a little bit emotional when I saw them because...
Wait, time out here, because I wanted to prompt this to you. So I noticed starting at Champ-Lac that Soph and Phoebe were positioned strategically like outside the aid stations, a little beyond them, and that you would stop give a quick hug and a kiss to the family. And obviously, I know that was intentional. So pick up with what you were going to say, but also I think the audience would love to hear the purpose of this and the conversation between you and Sophie to determine, hey, I want you in these places for this reason.
I think it was me knowing that they were going to be there didn't necessarily make me go faster, but it was almost like a magnet pulling me to them. I didn't want to see them before the aid station because I wanted to focus. I wanted to sort all my things out, do a proper aid station, make sure I don't forget anything, change my top, change my gloves, change my jacket, get everything sorted. And then, I wanted them a little bit further away just so it was going to be the last thing that I see from that aid station before embarking on like the next chapter of the race or the next stage of the race. And probably like 10 meters away, I probably sort of not burst into tears, but definitely got emotional and started crying a little bit. And Soph says in true Soph style, something like, pull yourself together, like hold it. You need to hold it together. Now's not the time to be emotional. And it's amazing because it's so her.
Very British too, it feels
very
like.
British, very unlike me. I'm an emotional wreck most of the time. But yeah, it's so nice to just see them, and Phoebe was fast asleep. And yeah, it's just, that thing just gave me the final send off, like the little push that I needed to be like, okay, cool. Like it's still on. You've still got a long way to go, but you're doing everything that you need to do, knowing that I was then going to see them again at Trient, Valacine, and then the finish. So it was kind of like a bit of a magnet for me just to get to the next aid station. And I put a smile on my face. And I think that's, if I've learned anything from this training block, it's smiling harder is more important than trying to run harder in certain circumstances. And 120k deep into UTMB, that is one of the times where smiling and happiness plays more than extra bits of training.
Okay, so then coming back to other details of the race execution that I know were very intentional. At a couple of the aid stations, the camera was positioned in such a way that we could see that you had like a dry erase board with specific messages at different aid stations. So I think at Trient, it was like efficiency. And then I remember specifically at Valacine, it was eat and smile that was written down on the boards. Share a little bit about this strategy with the audience.
It was just working with who you met briefly, David Spindler.
He's going to come on the show too. We've been texting. That guy seems like an absolute legend.
He was with us for 2 weeks in Argentière. He is now currently in Andorra with all of the studs for the road biking world championships on their final preparation leading into the race. He is all about changing your brain chemistry to basically to send positivity and reinforce positivity. And there's some of the things that we had worked on in training together, both from like a physical and mental standpoint, was to find things in my daily life that made me smile and things that I could then replicate out on the race course. So one of the things that I did quite a lot, as you know, with a baby, they make lots of funny noises. And we went through a stage of like, I would either sit with her or lie with her on my chest and howl like a wolf. So in a lot of phases in the night when I was just on my own and there was no one around, I was just howling. And that then put a big smile on my face, and that sort of memory of this is the fun times. And it sort of just sparks that chemical reaction in your brain to be like, oh, okay, cool. Like you're happy. And that then puts a smile on your face. You feel good. It's then easier to carry out the tasks you've got to do, whether that's taking your jacket off, drying out your gloves, doing whatever. So the messages on the boards were, just 2 keywords for me to be able to focus on, things that didn't need to be said at the aid station, but I needed them in the back of my mind. So like the eat and smile one, like the eat was very much we know you're near the finish, but don't try and just muscle it out and think that it's over. Like you need to keep eating.
Yeah.
You need to keep eating till Flagère, fill up with cola at Flagère and just nurse that on the way down, which is I think what everyone does. these days. It seems to be everyone's favorite. It's certainly mine.
Even at CCC, it feels like that's the strategy.
100%. It's the best cola you're ever going to have. And then the smiling, again, it's just remembering, like, yes, it's stressful. You're near the end of the race, but like, take the time to appreciate what you're doing and the people who have made it onto the course. And especially in Valacine, it was one of the most surreal, crazy 5 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
And by having those on the board, like, they would just end up, I'm a pretty visual person. So like having them there, I remember that more than a conversation that we've had. Mm-hmm. So just having them in the aid station sort of just almost refocuses and recenters my mind to be like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Just keep remembering to do this, because I'll then remember that rather than being in the aid station. I'm told to eat in the aid station. I'm probably already worrying about getting outside the aid station.
Yeah.
And sort of just trying to get back to the finishing banner as soon as possible.
So cool. And it reminds me too, from the live broadcast, when you were descending down into Valacine and you saw the crowd for the first time, you actually just came to a dead stop on the trail and just like, got the crowd all pumped up in a way that...
The crowd was already pumped. I could hear them, honestly, from about 5 minutes before. It was crazy.
But it was cool too, because in that moment, it's easy to be like, it's all business at this point. I got to finish the job. But really, the best way to finish the job is to enjoy it the entire way. And speaking of which, what a perfect segue to fast forward to dropping down back to Chamonix, a champion of the UTMB. It's something I know you've been dreaming about your entire career and that you've been working towards diligently for, call it the last 4 or 5 years. And specifically, dealing with challenges in the last 2 of them. What did it feel like for you to finally be able to, just because this is another thing you said at the finish line too, Tom, is like, if you put your mind to something, you can do it. And it took you 4 consecutive starts at UTMB, a podium finish, but 2 DNFs. But you freaking did it, man. And it is like really remarkable to see this pattern in your career of just like you put your mind to something. And even if it takes a long time to figure it out, and Ruth is sort of another example of this, like you always figure it out, So what did it feel like to figure this one out? And maybe how does it rank in the amazing accomplishments you've had in your career?
Yeah, 100%. I think finishing it, I let myself smile because I thought that I was going to win sort of descending flagelle, but at the same time, my quads are so battered. You can't smile that much. You're sort of grimacing as much as smiling. But because I knew the course so well, it was just second nature. Yeah, so you then get down in Chamonix and when you sort of cross over the stairs up and across the road and then down the other side, it's, at that point of you let it start to sink in. And I think it was first, I guess my first thought was probably for myself being like, well done. You've executed the race plan you executed the race plan. That's all you had to do. So well done for doing that. Secondly, to all of the people who have been with me for the journey from the very beginning. And geez, I've had people reach out who I did Marathon des Sables with in 2017. So I can't believe you've come this far and done this much. And it's incredible. But then I guess a bit closer to that, like the people in my team from Scott Johnson to Joseph to my nutritionist Paul to Ben, my soft tissue guy, all who have come out to Chamonix this year and put so much time and effort into believing the dream. Because it's a tough one for someone to come and say, all right, I've not finished for 2 years in a row. I think I can win, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. And for them to say like, cool, I believe in your vision. I believe in you. We think we can find a way to do it. And then thirdly, just like the sacrifices that Soph and Phoebe have made in order for me to be able to be here doing this. And like we always say that trail running isn't an individual sport. Like it is a team sport. Like, yes, you're out there on your own, but you've got all of these people rooting and wishing well for you all over the mountains and back home. Yeah, I think that's an incredibly special thing. And to be able to celebrate with them on the finish line was incredible. And I think as well as I like to think I'm I'm an okay person, and like I think I'm reasonably popular as an athlete. Like I share my story. I'm incredibly open with what I do. I share family life. Like I've had a lot of athletes, pro athletes who are also in the race saying like, we're genuinely really glad that you won. Like slightly, it's about time that you won, but you've still got to do it. Like there are some amazing athletes who have never won UTMB. Like even if you are ranked number one going in, which I definitely wasn't, you've still got to execute an amazing race, because there will be people like last year, Vincent, who will take the opportunity and will beat everyone.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I guess finally, where does it sit in sort of where I think sort of performances are? Like, I guess this and Western States are my two big 100-mile wins. Very difficult to say which one's better or not. And I don't think that one is better or not than the other. Western States for me just clicked. I can run 140 miles a week on flat and rolling terrain with a lot of it at 6-minute pace, really comfortably, and really enjoy it. I'm good in the heat. I like running without a pack. I'm a runner. I've raced world cross country championships, world half marathon champs. It's relative. It's not an easy race, but I find it easy to train for. And I enjoy that sort of training. For me, this year, deliberately this is the first time I've not raced like the county cross country championships for 5 years, because I think grassroots sport for me is really important. And to have pro athletes turning up to some farmer's field and running around it 10 times there's something beautiful with it. Deliberately making the decision not to do that so I could spend countless hours on our custom treadmill, weighted, unweighted. Like I've done so much more climbing this year, spending more days out, long days in the mountains, going way slower and not necessarily enjoying it at the time, because I'm thinking, I've got 30 miles to do today. I should be doing this in 5 hours, but actually this is going to take me 6.5 hours. Like the training didn't feel necessarily easy, and it was really challenging. So I think in terms of like a personal satisfaction, this result is my favorite and my best result, because it didn't come easy. Like it took 4 years. Like in most of the races I've done, like the second time it's kind of worked out. Yeah. CCC, I was fourth, then first. Western States, I was third, then first. And then UTMB, I was third. And then I thought, well, this is what normally happens. I'd normally find a way in the second year. And I didn't. It's a
foregone conclusion. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, well, I'm on the start line. I'm going to be fine. And then it didn't happen. And then it didn't happen again. And then you're like, I don't know if I'm good enough for this. Am I ever going to do this? Like, I want to join the very small group of men and women who have won Western States and UTMB. There's not many. Yeah, I can't believe the men who have that. I'm now sort of part of that little group. So yeah, I think in terms of like where this sits with me, like it really is that hard work and perseverance pays off. And whether that's winning a race or like if you've DNF'd a couple of times from UTMB and you just want to find a way to finish, it's like you can find a way to do it. Like, yes, it might not look conventional. You might need to think slightly outside the box. You might need to have you might not be the fittest person, but like you can have the best admin and you can look after yourself the best on the trails. There's no reason why you can't overperform when the chips are down. And I think like, if anything, what this year has taught me is it's the like, going through the race beforehand, being like, what might happen? Okay, well, if this does happen, like what can I do? And how am I not going to let it affect me negatively? Like, I guess in previous years, when people go off the front and you want to win a race and you just think, this is stressful. And you say to yourself, I'm sure they'll come back. But then sort of another hour goes by and they don't. And you're like, have I undercooked this? And then people generally do come back.
Yeah.
But I think it's just having that confidence to be like, okay, cool. Like, I'm just going to do my thing. I think I said to you that I thought that I was going to run sort of 1940 to 1945. And I think that's probably possibly a little bit faster what this would have been, maybe a little bit, who knows, with pyramids. But yeah, who knows? So I think like I knew that I could do it. It was just a case of executing, which is sometimes the thing that gets in the way, because you get into the race and so you go into fight or flight mode and you make bad decisions, which we've all done. And I've certainly done twice at UTMB. Yeah, hopefully I've now learned the lesson.
Okay, so I have to ask you about the team a little bit. You mentioned David Spindler, and I am planning to connect with him and hopefully do a podcast when we can coordinate it with both of our busy schedules. And yeah, as you mentioned, it seems like he's helping other world-class athletes at the moment. But in our pre-race interview, you mentioned Joseph, the data science guy, and that ended up becoming a topic of conversation throughout UTMB week with sort of Freetrail stuff. And then the other very unusual thing is that Scott Johnson is the coach of both champions. So with that as sort of an open-ended thing, I'd love to hear, just like the team that helped you put this together, maybe specifically highlighting Scott and Joseph, because we've already at least touched on David a little bit, but I'm sure the audience would love to hear, especially based on that unusual factor of you and Ruth really sharing at least a couple of the key characters.
Ruth and I share coach. We both share Scott, Joseph, and then my nutritionist also did Ruth's nutrition for the race as well.
And that's Paul, is that Booth?
Paul Booth that leads that. So all the videos that I posted with me in the lab were with Paul. I think Ruth and I are fairly similar athletes on paper. And yeah, I guess the way that this works is, and I think the amazing thing about this group of individuals is they've come together to create a team. Like there are definitely coaches out there who don't like being told what they are prescribing might not be the best thing, like looking at all of the available data. And I think where everyone has done amazingly well is everyone knows their place and they're not afraid to speak up and to say, like, have we thought about doing this, or have we thought about doing something a little bit differently, and for everyone to listen. And like, I think the really nice thing with Scott is because he is a very mature, very well-rounded and very experienced coach, not just in trail running, but in mountaineering and in skiing. He's able to take so much information of physiology and everything else, and he's seen so much because he's been around forever. And to be able to sort of really look at the problems of the course and then think, what can we do in order to try and mitigate these things? And I think the real focus for both me and Ruth this year wasn't climbing speed or flat speed, whatever it was. It was resistance to fatigue. But he had identified that what we need to do is to be able to run the last 30, 40K, which is a relatively fast part of the course, quicker than anyone else, and to be able to move better than anyone else on those parts of the course. So, right, what can we do from a data point? So that was with Joseph, and it was, okay, well, in order to do that, we need to go slower at the beginning. Okay, cool. Nutrition, what do we need to do? Okay, well, we need to be on nutrition from the beginning, and we then need to preload, and then to make sure that we're still consuming during the final part of the race. And what typically happens is with those who fuel really high carb, like 100, 120 grams an hour, by the time they get to the end of the race, they don't want to fuel anymore. And so we said straight away, like, no, we need to be fueling for the last 30K. Like, I had my last gel at the top of Flagey. I fueled for the whole race and had a different fueling plan to normal. It wasn't done on time. It was done on aid stations in geography. So there were some hours where the average was 40 grams of carbs. There were some hours where the average was 120.
Wow.
Depending on what the demand was. So, for example, on leaving Chapiot, I fueled seriously hard. I had 3 40-gram gels in 40 minutes, knowing that by the time that I take my poles out and I start hiking, it's going to be cold. it's going to be a lot of workload, especially thinking that we were doing pyramids again, because realistically, you're not fueling on the short descent. You're not fueling very well climbing up pyramids. You're definitely not fueling on the way down from pyramid to Lac Combau because it's too technical.
God.
So it was using that. And then, and what the coaches did is they would sort of come together and say like, okay, right, like I can compromise on this part of the training or this part of the race in order to facilitate this. And it was everyone was so keen and so open with working together and creating a team. Like you'd see it in pro sports, you'd see it in cycling, you see it in, even not in a cycling team, but with like long distance gravel riders, like you see it there. And I feel like as the trail running sport is, whether it's professionalizing or it's getting more professional, I think probably the latter more so than the former, but I think the sport is turning more professional. Then I think we'll see more and more of these like bespoke teams. I know some of the coaching setups, like I know CTS do it for some of their athletes and create this sort of performance bubble. So the athlete doesn't need to worry about doesn't need to sweat the small things. And we just have sort of a race brief 2 days before the race and cool, that's the plan. And then all the athlete needs to do is believe in the plan, buy into it, and then execute it. And then there's no stress, no pressure, and you share the workload. And it means that you go into a race and it is a real team effort, which is incredible.
Very, very cool. All right, a couple more quick things before we wind down and sort of expanding on this team idea. You did come into the season with a new sponsor, that being Asics, who had an amazing year at UTMB, your performance notwithstanding. Of course, Ben Demon, second place at UTMB, Andre Wietek, third place at OCC, Maud Mathis, Sarah Alonso were both top 5 at OCC. So we did an analysis on teams in totality and how they performed at UTMB, and Asics was number 2 behind Hoka. And obviously you and Ben really led that charge. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, famously, you did a shoey at the end. And I think a lot of people were zooming in on the footwear and stuff. It's exciting to see Asics back in the game. Our audience will remember Xavier Thevenard was an Asics athlete, at the time he won his 3 UTMBs. Share anything that's relevant about the switch, this new team, and how it's part of this reinvigoration, it feels like, of your career in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think this time last year, after some disappointments in the last few years, notwithstanding Western States, I needed change. I felt a bit stagnant in what I was doing. Don't think my goals necessarily aligned particularly well with where I was, and just needed a sort of a fresh start and a clean start. And I was fortunate enough to be of interest to lots of brands in the trail running space, from the mainstream brands to the new up and coming brands. So from like Nike to Kip Run, for example. Yeah. And it's incredible to see that these both mainstream and up and coming brands are wanting to get more into the trail running space. And what I found really interesting with Asics was they said, look, like we might not have the credibility as anyone else, but like that's kind of why we want you. We want you to help with the development. We want you to help bring us along into sort of a modern trail running company. And how can we do that? And in return, how can we support you the best? Like for me, my real goal of this sort of 3-year contract period was to win UTMB. And that's now done. So they said, like, right, what can we do in order to allow that to happen? And I said, look, I need a bit more space. I'm not going to be staying in team houses. Like I'll stay on my own, and I want some support with that. When I do races, now that we're going to have a child, like it's going to be more difficult for me to bring my own crew and bring physios and things. So, and then they said, right, well, we can sort that out. We'll bring crew to all of your races. We'll bring physios. We'll bring videographers so we can tell the story, but from your channels. It just aligned so well. And I love the work ethic and the mentality from Asics as a brand. And in my eyes, like, yes, they are more known as a road shoe, and the first iteration of the sort of the race trail shoe is definitely it's road DNA with not an afterthought for the trail, but it's a road shoe. But the edition that Ben and I wore at UTMB is most certainly not a road shoe.
It won freaking UTMB. It can't be.
It's honestly, it is hands down the best. You could change the branding on it, and I'd say it was hands down the best trail shoe I've ever worn.
Yeah.
I think the big difference in this,
I always hear now that Asics is the best road shoe too.
I agree. I think the foams that they have got access to now, and the combination of foam on foam, they have unlocked something quite special. I think what's really special about this shoe is it feels as good hiking as it does running, which is very, very rare in a trail running shoe, because normally the better it feels running, the more unstable it is. Your calves are just burning because you're having to use your small stabilizing muscles to support yourself. But these are like this, in my eyes, the Swiss Army knife. It can do anything. Is it the perfect shoe for Western states? Probably not. But for a mountain ultra race like a UTMB, yeah, for me, it's absolutely perfect. And yeah, I've literally found out today that it's being released beginning of the summer next year.
Okay.
I think they've brought the release forwards because they're like, we've not nailed it, but we're well on our way to, we probably need one, possibly two more prototyping rounds, but we want people in these shoes. And I agree.
Well, you're going to be busy around the launch campaign for that, but that's a problem to worry about in 2026. And critically, it's also a shoe that's capable of slamming a Red Bull out of it at a finish line of UTMB. So
yeah, if anything, the upper's a bit too breathable.
It was leaking.
I need a Gore-Tex.
Get the full Red Bull in there. Yeah. Okay, final question for you, Tom. I appreciate you spending so much time. It's obviously always so fun to talk, and I feel like I gather a handful of really unique new insights every time we do. But sort of finishing in maybe just a more sentimental place, being back at home now, it feels appropriate. Like we weren't able to put this interview together in Chamonix, but I'm kind of glad we didn't, because it gives us a little bit more space. And what I'd really love to hear is just like, you've only had a few days to process this amazing accomplishment, but you and Soph are now home with Phoebe, and whether or not you've had a moment to just look each other in the eyes and shake your head and just think, what the hell just happened to us? Or, if it's the opposite, if it just feels like, just another day in the life, a UTMB champion now, and, back to the drawing board, back to the process.
Definitely the former. Like there's been times where it's sort of just been that sort of pinch myself moment that we did it. And it was such a we. It wasn't an I. It was so much a we. Like we have literally had the greatest, most fun summer away with friends and family. Literally, we're staying with us pretty much every day for the last 8 weeks. Yeah, created this almost like an entourage and just had the most amount of fun in training, around training. And I think that added to it. So yeah, getting home, it sort of almost feels not sad that it's over, but like, cool, we've done that. We know how incredible it was. We had the most incredible time. Getting back, in a bit of normality, but still like, I guess in an amazing way, like, it's been, the media response to this has been ridiculous. Like I was live on Sky Sports News yesterday. I'm live on the BBC News, or not live, sorry, recorded a 10-minute segment for the BBC News tonight. It's crazy that it's resonating so much with so many for such a small sport. And yeah, fairly incredible to see. I've sort of been told off a few times for not doing as many dad duties as I should, but I'm not training at the moment. So that will, as I start to, I have a bit of a rough plan of what I may or may not do next year and for the rest of this year. So yeah, sort of just trying to tee some things up, wait for some race entries to open, and then see where it's form.
Okay. Well, I'll resist the temptation to pry into that a little bit more for now. Tom, congratulations, buddy. It's a great sporting story, to having followed you for a long time, to just see how it always does work out, man. And like, you just provide such an important example, I think, of just how to conduct your career in the right way, in a way that does like lift up everybody around you, even though you are, it seems to me, a diehard competitor. And to your point, I think there were a lot of people rooting for you. And Jim Walmsley mentioned it in our sort of instant reaction show. He was like, I'm just psyched to see Tom and Ruth join the Western States UTMB Champions Club. It's so well deserved. It's been a long time coming, but you guys both finally did it. You're both amazing champions. And I always appreciate when you find time in between Sky Sports and the BBC to talk to little old Freetrail.
You're the Freetrails. That was the number one priority. I told Sky News they had to go earlier.
Yes. Well, thank you, buddy. Congratulations again. Enjoy this moment, and hope to talk again soon.
Perfect. Look forward to seeing you in the US next year.
Let's go.